All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good morning and welcome to All Indiana Politics. I'm Garrett Bergquist in for Phil Sanchez. Voters in the largest of the 4 excluded municipalities in Marion County will pick a new mayor next month. Lawrence Mayor Steve Collier is not running for another term. Democrats have told me they consider this a potential pickup for them. I sat down with both candidates for mayor. We begin with Democrat Deb Whitfield. Let's bring in Deb Whitfield. Deb, thanks for dropping by today.
Thank you for having us.
So why are you running for mayor of Lawrence?
Well, thank you. That's a very great question. I'm running for mayor of Lawrence because I think it's time. It's time for a new voice. It's time for a new era. It's time for us to start looking like the city that we represent. Lawrence is very diverse, and I want to be the voice and advocate for them and help them understand that it's a great opportunity in Lawrence and that I want to be that salesperson, a proud, strong voice for Lawrence. So that's why I'm running. It's time.
When you and I talked this spring, you talked about providing resources for people with mental health needs. How do you plan to do that?
Oh, there's so many wonderful ideas and best practices out there. And I think as we continue to build our public safety and give them the resources that they need and the tools, I think part of that will also be establishing some type of opportunity to learn and care about mental health awareness. So I think also one of the things to do is to develop a citizen action group so that we can hear the voice of our residents and build upon some of their skill sets and knowledge out there.
Your background is as a diversity, equity, and inclusion director. How would you incorporate that into your work as mayor?
Oh, that's a great question. One of the things that you have to understand about DEI and B, the belonging part, is, as I said before, Lawrence is very diverse. So I want to listen. I want to hear their voice. I want to advocate for them. I want the city to be very inclusive. I want our residents to feel that they have a voice in the city and that they're being heard. And inclusion is very important to me, but I also want them to feel that they belong in the city, that they have a voice, and that they have an opportunity to share their thoughts so that hopefully being transparent we can work upon and come to some mutual arrangements to continue to advance Lawrence.
Most of the recent development has been along and north of 56th Street. How do you ensure that the areas south of 56th Street, and especially south of Pendleton Pike, don't get left behind?
I love when people ask me that question. It has to do with transit. It has to do with connectivity. How do we connect all points of Lawrence to the fort that we are obviously building as our downtown? So also, again, is transit, is also that connectivity, is also, again, listening to the voice, the people that live there, their wants and their needs, so they can feel that they belong and have a voice in Lawrence.
What kind of growth do you want to see in Lawrence?
Another great question. The growth in Lawrence, it's time. We want to invest in the small businesses and businesses that are in Lawrence now. So I want to do investment, innovation, and inclusion. So we need to continue to invite people into Lawrence. We want to reach out to others to have an opportunity in Lawrence. You know, I'm on the council, and since I've been on the council, I've heard from so many different companies, small businesses, they don't have an opportunity in Lawrence. So I want to break the good old boy system. I want them to feel that they can come and they can have an opportunity to grow in Lawrence.
You've promised a safer and more secure city. What does that look like, and how do you plan to get there?
Lawrence is safe. we have a very high rate of solving our crimes. But we also have to have an idea to move forward, to continue to build that safety. So I want to make sure that I am a candidate for Moms Demand Action, so gun sense. I think that we need to continue that. We need to increase the purchasing age from 18 to 21. We need to end endless permit, gun carry. We need to help our police officers better and resources for them, and our first responders. So there's a lot of things that we can continue to do to keep Lawrence safe and to invest in Lawrence.
What's one issue we haven't discussed that you think is not getting enough attention in this election?
That's a great question. I think the difference and the voice that I want to bring to Lawrence is very important. I said in a lot of my answers how important it is that our residents have a voice and that they understand that the city that they live and work and pay taxes on wants to hear. We have so many skill sets, talents, and perspectives out in Lawrence, and I think if we could tap into all that energy and the momentum that we have, you can see us grow rapidly around with Lawrence.
What makes you the best candidate for this job?
I think because I've knocked on our campaign over 10,000 doors. I'm out in the community. I've been in healthcare 40 years, and I understand that the opportunity to listen to people, hear their thoughts, their wishes, their wants, to help them understand they belong and have an opportunity in the city, I think that's very important to me. I'm very approachable, I'm transparent, and I think I'm loyal. I've been at a community health network for 28 years, so I think that makes a very good sound that I am loyal, and I want to make sure that it's time that we bring a new era and new voice to Lawrence.
Coming up, we hear from the Republican candidate for mayor of Lawrence, Dave Hoffman. Welcome back. We continue our coverage of the race for mayor of Lawrence with Republican candidate Dave Hoffman. With us now is Dave Hoffman. Dave, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Why are you running for mayor of Lawrence?
Well, I love the city of Lawrence, and I was born for this job. I have lived in Lawrence my whole adult life. I've raised my children there, and we just feel like it's our hometown, and I want to see the success of Lawrence continue. We've had an amazing about 10 years now in terms of growth and development, safety, and I want to see that continue in our city.
You've talked about combining local dollars with federal and state grants to fund water and street projects. What would be your top priorities there?
Yeah, so annually we seek community crossings matching grants from the state of Indiana, which are right now capped at $1 million. We will be seeking those again next year and in years to come. Paving projects are obviously very important to us. We have seen a great deal of paving projects in the city of Lawrence on the main thoroughfares, and I think our city really we're ready to get back into the neighborhoods and replace some of those aging neighborhood streets. I think are going to be next on our agenda.
What's your backup plan if you can't get those grants?
So we'll use tax-funded, revenues as best we can, but I'm optimistic based on past performance that our future performance is going to indicate that we will receive some state and federal dollars as well.
Much of the recent development has been along and north of 56th Street. How do you ensure that the areas south of 56, and especially south of Pendleton Pike, don't get left behind?
Right. I know there's a lot of people that think that, but that's just not true. We have spent real close to $50 million, $50 million, all in the historic side of Lawrence, way south of 56th Street, on sewer mains, water mains, stormwater projects, and that's going to continue. As you might expect, the older parts of Lawrence were in the most need of those improvements, and that's what we're going to continue focusing on, those areas that are in need of the most improvements. South of Pendleton Pike is also an area that people seem to think that we don't spend any time in, which is simply not true. We have 2 new neighborhoods going in south of Pendleton Pike. We spend a lot of time at 42nd and Post Road, 46th and Franklin, 46th and Pendleton Pike, and those are areas that are going to continue to see a lot of focus.
You've also said that you want to keep crime rates low. How will you go about doing that?
We must invest in our public safety officials, not just police, but fire. Our fire department and our police officers, they've got great response times. Crime has been consistently trending downward. As you may or may not know, I was the police chief in the city of Lawrence for 6 years, and in all of those years, all of our Part 1 crimes, which are all those crimes that we report to the FBI, they were trending downward in general, and that continues to be the case. It's the men and women of the Lawrence Police Department that get the credit for that, by the way, and only by having a fully staffed and funded police department can that occur. When I was chief, I was proud, long before it was fashionable, to equip my officers with body cameras. That was in 2017, long before, again, most other cities and towns were doing that. Of course, we know what happened in Minneapolis in 2020, and then, of course, communities were clamoring for body cameras. We were already doing it. We build trust, accountability, community relations, and we keep our community safe, not just our citizens, but keeping our police officers safe as well.
What kind of growth do you want to see in Lawrence?
Well, I think the Pendleton Pike corridor, I think, is ripe for redevelopment right now. We've got so many properties that are available. We've got NDOT coming in, the Indiana Department of Transportation, and they're going to do a $9 million safety and beautification project along Pendleton Pike from 465 to Oak Landon. I think that's going to really beautify the area, obviously make it safer. It'll involve landscape medians and make Pendleton Pike feel more like, you know, the small town feel that Lawrence has in other areas, like, for example, along 56th Street. I think that we have a project called the Trades District that is in its infancy right now. It's in the design phases, and that's an area right over by 465 and Pendleton Pike, over to Franklin Road, and then there's a railroad line to the north. And we're going to use that area to attract businesses such as mechanical, heating, air conditioning, electrical, plumbing, those kinds of what we call trades.
What's one issue we haven't talked about that you think is not getting enough attention in this race?
When I left the police department, I became the chief of staff for the police department. In that role, I had an opportunity to see all the departments of the city, not just the police department, but everything from budgeting on a $27 million budget and how that money comes in and goes out, how we prioritize projects. I got to see our streets department, our parks department, our controller's office, our city attorney's office, our human resources, and how we recruit and hire and retain close to 300 city employees that we all work together to get the job done in operating our city, to make sure that the quality of life in Lawrence is never compromised and that public safety is never, ever compromised. So in those capacities, you are looking at somebody who is uniquely qualified to bring leadership and experience into the mayor's office on day one.
Coming up, Indiana's best political team talks the war in Israel and the continuing battle for a new Speaker of the House. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in two members of Indiana's best political team, Republican Tom John and Democrat Kip Tu. Let's begin with a major international crisis with Americans and possibly Hoosiers in the crosshairs. The now week-old war in Gaza is arguably the largest in Israel's history since it declared independence 75 years ago. Tom, Republicans are uniformly rallying to Israel's cause. Does this potentially change how the party thinks about foreign military aid, particularly to Ukraine?
It certainly brings to the fore those sorts of questions, right? Where are we going to be involved internationally and where we aren't? That being said, Israel is truly one of America's longest term and staunchest allies. And we have been an ally of theirs and somebody who's worked with them closely over the years. And so I do think it's somewhat different that we have proxy war potentially in Ukraine. I'm not taking a position one way or the other on it. Whereas this is about, we've been brought to fore as if NATO had been attacked in the Ukraine conflict. We're brought to the fore with one of our strongest allies, and we have to respond and be there for them.
Kip, this conflict is exposing a bit of a rift among Democrats. The party's progressive wing, including our own Congressman Andre Carson, has sharply criticized Israel's treatment of Palestinians in the past, and some even renewed those criticisms this week, including Carson indirectly. Is this an inflection point for progressive Democrats?
Well, I hope progressive Democrats realize that what Hamas has done has been pure evil. They invaded a sovereign nation. They killed babies. They cut heads off. They've done horrible things. So I hope that what happens at this inflection point, as you might call it, is that there's some soul searching on the extreme left in my party to say, we can't be supporting people who are using terrorism to try to justify their ends, and so, or the means and the ends, I guess. And so we need to do what is necessary to advance our political agenda or political agendas across the world without resorting to this kind of terrorism.
Kip, Republicans, including Indiana Congressman Jim Banks, are criticizing the Biden administration for not calling out Iran. Hamas has been linked to Tehran. Do they have a point?
Jim Banks is always being hyperbolic, so I don't take much of what he says very seriously. I think that most Americans, and I know the world, is very happy right now that the President of the United States is Joe Biden rather than the previous occupant, because Joe Biden has the experience, the intelligence, the wisdom to work through this crisis. And I think the world is in a much better place to have Joe Biden heading this stuff up.
Tom, I'll let you chime in on that as well. But also, we've seen a lot of gestures of support for Israel here in Indiana. Might that help turn back the increasing tide of anti-Semitism we've seen here at home?
Well, on that, I certainly hope so. Israel's an ally, and there's no excuse for anti-Semitism, and anything that could do that or suppress that sort of behavior is obviously a good thing. On the issue of the Democrat Party and Joe Biden, we're better off for that. Kip mentioned the word intelligence, which brought to mind the fact that the Biden administration been provided intelligence that there might be this sort of attack or something in the offing, and the Biden administration didn't act on that. Similarly, they misjudged what was going to happen and didn't intercede and potentially prevent the Ukrainian war when they had an opportunity. And you can take these even back to the Obama administration, some of the failures they've had. The simple fact is that they have waited until there's a problem and then began to react. And that's one of the problems. And similarly, you can look back at the evacuation of Afghanistan and the failure that happened in that. I think it's great that President Biden is the one in the seat at this point.
If we want to go back in history, we can look at George W. Bush and him ignoring the intelligence prior to 9/11. So there's a lot of blame to be you can assess in other places. The fact of the matter is Joe Biden's got the experience to help in this process.
Gentlemen, let's turn to the House Speaker election. Steve Scalise has withdrawn from the race after failing to win a majority. Tom, does this open the door for Jim Jordan, and could he secure enough support?
It certainly opens the door for him, right? There was an agreement that the person elected by the conference committee would be the person that would become the speaker, and that didn't follow through. The harder question is, can he actually be the one that gets across the line? It's unclear. You've had some representatives say, I believe, hell no, that they were not going to support him based on things that happened in the last election. You've had others say, we need to step up. We're frankly a caricature and we have to do something. And he's the one that's put his name forward. Frankly, I'm disappointed and ashamed of what's going on in D.C. for the Republican Party right now.
Kip, I've got about a minute left. We have about a month before a potential government shutdown. What are the odds we can get a speaker and a funding bill in that time?
Boy, I don't know about the odds. I will say I agree with Tom with respect to what's happening in the Republican Party nationally. It's an embarrassment for the United States and particularly the Republican Party. I really can't give you the odds. Hopefully, cooler heads will prevail, and there will be a bipartisan pick for Speaker of the House, and that we will get things done for the American people. That's what needs to happen.
Got about 30 seconds left. Very briefly, turning to the candidates from Lawrence, we heard Democrats consider this a pickup opportunity. This is for both of you. What are the odds for each party? Kip, we'll begin with you.
I like our chances in Lawrence. I think our ground game is good. I think our candidate is very good. It's always a tough fight between Republicans and Democrats in Lawrence, but I think we're going to win.
Tom, bring us home.
Simple fact is that Dave Hoffman is the guy. He has been police chief. He has been chief of staff to this administration that has done great things for the city of Lawrence. In the time that candidate Whitfield has been the head of the public safety committee of the council, they haven't met once. That tells you how much she's engaged in the community and tells you she's
Gentlemen,
not
we'll have to leave it there. Thanks for joining us. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. And if you want to hear more of my interviews with the candidates you just saw, check out the All Indiana Politics podcast on wishtv.com. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.